Hello, physical scientists. Ms. Getz here. Today, we are going to talk about how do we calculate speed. And so your goal by the end of this video is I can calculate speed using time and distance measurements. And so far we have talked about how we measure speed using time and distance, how we understand which thing is faster based on the distance it goes or the time it takes to go that distance. Today, we'll look at calculations. And so to start off with, to do any calculations, we want to have a formula for speed. And I want you to just take a moment and think about, do you know a formula already? You might. If you think about the unit for speed when you're driving a car, it's in miles per hour. That means it's miles, which is a distance, per, which is a math term that means divide, an hour is a time. So you do actually maybe know the equation already. For any speed, it's equal to the distance divided by the time. So this is our equation, and we're going to be doing some calculations with it pretty soon. But I want to review our ways of measuring distance and time. So we have lots of different units for distance, and distance measures how far we go. We have centimeters, meters, kilometers, inches, and miles. These are part of the metric system. This is part of the US system. And for time, we also have a lot of units: seconds, minutes, hours, days. We could do months, years. There's so many different units you can use to measure distance and time. In physical science, we're just going to focus on meters, kilometers, miles, seconds, and hours. You can do calculations with all sorts of different units, but we're going to focus on those for our calculations. So maybe my saying calculations is making you feel a little bit stressed out, which I understand, because sometimes word problems can be the most stressful ones in math class, and even sometimes in science class. But we have some really helpful tools that we're going to use here in physical science to help you out with those. And the first thing is that we really want to figure out, what do you even know in a problem? So here I have a problem, a word problem, and it says Ms. Parvey drives to school. She lives 5.3 miles away from Harding. It takes her 8 minutes to get to school. What is her average speed? Okay, so first off, we want to say, well, what do I know in this problem? And a great way to figure out what you know is scan through the problem and say, okay, I find some numbers in the problem. There's first this number, 5.3 miles. And since it has units miles, that tells me it's a distance. And then I scan through and there's another number, 8 minutes. Since the number 8 is attached to the units minutes, that tells me it's the time. So a really great tool when you're solving a problem is to make sure you know what the different numbers are telling you in that problem. Take a moment and try figuring out what the numbers tell you in this problem. So you looked at the numbers 3 km, and 3 km means 3 kilometers, which is a distance. And our other set of numbers is 10 minutes, and that's a time. So if you got those, give yourself a pat on the back. You're going to do just fine with this. Don't stress, because I have another tool for you that we're going to use. So when we're solving problems in science, we're going to use a problem-solving set of steps, and actually a problem-solving chart, a little table that looks like this. The first step we've just been practicing, and that's listing the knowns. What do we know in the problem already? In this problem, we knew 3 kilometers and 10 minutes. So that's one of our knowns. We also want to figure out what our unknowns are. What is the problem asking us? And so we're going to start out by listing those. What do I know? And what do I not know? My unknowns I'm going to list with a question mark. Then I'm going to write the equation that I'm going to use. That's going to go in this box. I'm going to show my work by plugging in the numbers into the formula. That's showing my work, box number 3. I'm going to calculate my answer. I might use a calculator. You can use your iPad calculator. And I'm going to, here's the really important one that lots of people miss. I'm going to write the units on the answer, final units. And looking at the units in what numbers you knew to start off with can really help you figure out what the final units should be. So let's take some time to do a practice problem. Our first practice problem is a monarch butterfly can fly about 322 kilometers in 24 hours. That's pretty far. What is the butterfly's speed? Okay, so first off, we're going to do this first step. What do we know? So I know 322 km, and that's actually the distance, so I'm going to write that in my chart. And I know 24 hours. Hours tell me a time measurement, so I'm going to write that down as time, showing my work, writing down everything I know. And there's something else the problem has told us we are looking for that we don't know, and that is, what is the butterfly's speed? So I'm going to write that down as a question mark in my table. Okay, I know my knowns, I know my unknowns, and now I'm going to figure out what equation to use. You can write down your equation in words, as I have here, or you can write it down in letters, which we call variables in science and math. Either one is totally okay. If I were you, I'd probably write down this version because I'm kind of lazy. But if you like having the words written out, write down the full words. Either one works. So then what we're going to do is we're going to show our work. So I'm going to write down, I'm calculating S for speed. That's equal to 322 kilometers divided by 24 hours. So take a moment right now and try calculating this answer. Hopefully you got the same answer I did, 13.4, we're done, right? All done? Oh, there's a fifth step. I've got to do the fifth step, and that's writing down my final units. And my final units are going to be kilometers per means divide, so I have a division sign there, hour. So I've written down my final units. I forgot to mention that you might have had 13.4, blah, 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 blah. You can round in general in science to like one decimal place. That's probably fine. We'll have more numbers that have blah, 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 blah numbers in them. So this problem, not so bad. You did a great job. Let's try another one. So this other problem, we have a plane that's going from Thailand to Minnesota. So a plane took 18 hours to get from Thailand, over here, to Minnesota, right here. And it flew 8,148 miles. What was its speed? Okay, so again, I'm going to go through the problem and I'm going to figure out, what do I know? The first number I know something about is 18 hours. It's in hours, so that tells me it's a time. I also know 8,148 miles, big number. That's in miles, so that tells me it's a distance. So I'm writing them down in my chart as I go through the problem. And I want to know what the speed is, so I'm going to write a question mark here for speed. Again, I can use either version of equation, written out in words or just in letters. And then I'd like you to take a moment and try to figure out, what work would you show in this problem? You're trying to calculate speed. What should you write down as your work in step 3? Hopefully you have the same work I do, which is my distance, 8,148 miles on top, divided by 18 hours on bottom. And so that's the work that I'm showing. And finally, I'm going to type that into my calculator. And on my calculator, it shows up 452.666666667. So I'm actually going to round that to the ones place to get my 453. And then I have my units, miles per hour, added on. And again, I'm getting my units by looking at either where I wrote them in my work, very helpful, or looking at my knowns and unknowns. We've got miles and hours, so it's going to be miles per hour. Let's do one more. So this problem is even longer, but we got this because we've got the tools to rock it. So we've got a penalty kick in soccer is made from 12 meters. Looks important. Wonder where we should write that. Away from the goal. It takes about 0.33 seconds from the time that the player kicks the ball for it to reach the goal. What is the speed of the soccer ball? Ooh, meaty question. So I've got this number 12 meters, and that is a distance. I'm going to go ahead and write that down as my distance. The other number, 0.33 seconds, is our time. I'm going to write that down. And that means we are looking for the speed. So speed gets a question mark. Again, I'm going to write down my equations. I know it might feel like a lot of work to have to write this down over and over and over again, but it's really, really helpful because when problems get more complicated, if you show all of your work, it's easier for you to get the problem right. And it's also easier for your teacher to help you if you get stuck, or if you make a small mistake, maybe you type in the wrong number on your calculator, you'll still get almost all the credit if you have all of your work shown. So then I'm going to show my work. I'm going to take 12 meters divided by 0.33 seconds. I'm going to type that in on my calculator. 12 divided by 0.33. I got 36.3. Anyway, it's repeating. I rounded to my ones place. You can round to your tenths place. Either one is okay. But what I'd like you to think about right now is what the units are going to be. So step 5, what will the final units be on this answer? And hopefully you decided that the units should be meters per second, or meters divided by seconds. Good work, guys. So we have learned that you can calculate speed using time and distance measurements. We've learned our equation, that speed is equal to distance divided by time. And we've learned how to use the problem-solving template and these problem-solving steps, where first we consider what we know in a problem, write down everything we know, and what we don't know are unknowns. We write that with a question mark. We write down what equation we're going to use. Show your calculations. What are you going to type into your calculator to do that problem? What answer do you get? And really important, lots of people forget this, what are the final units that should be on your answer? So do your best. Ask your teacher if you have any questions or need any help, and feel free to come back to this video if you get stuck on the first 2 problems on your next assignment, because they're the same as the last 2 problems in this video. Bye, physical scientists. I'll see you guys later.